Hey, I thought it might be a good idea to introduce myself to let you guys know who I am. There are two reasons for that. It's nice for you to know who you're listening to, and also we tend to have this problem in our lives, especially our professional lives. We tend to see people dressed in suits, and we attribute a persona to them because of the suits, because of the professionalism in which they are behaving, and yet not so much the way it is in reality. We're all human beings. We all have much richer lives than just wearing a suit. A lot of us run around the house in our PJs at night, or less. It could be easy to think of me as the middle-aged man in the suit, professional, maybe somebody to be revered. It doesn't really fit with me, to be honest. And it probably doesn't fit with many of your managers. So let's introduce me. Let's give you a bit of a sight of who I am, and maybe that will also help you to break down those barriers with people you work with. So, who am I? So while we chat, come for a ride around my neighbourhood with me. I'll show you a bit about it and who I am. I was born in New Zealand, in a little town called Palmerston North in New Zealand. And to a single parent family. I didn't come from a privileged family, and I was born pretty smart, but dyslexic and probably lacking a few opportunities. Very early in life, in fact, I seem to remember I needed to get my mother's permission to obtain a passport. I left New Zealand and I went overseas and sort of pursued my fortunes. I ended up coming back to New Zealand, and in that first few years, I learned sales and marketing. I was very successful as a very low-level salesperson, a lot of door-to-door actually, and also some insurance sales. And then I came back to New Zealand, and of all things, I joined the police. And I was in the police for nearly 10 years. And that taught me a lot about the world and how it works, how it really works. And also a lot about people, because you really see people when they're at their worst, when they're really struggling with life. And you see that a lot in the police. After about 10 years in the police, I had started a parallel career in IT, and once I left the police force, I moved back overseas to the complete opposite side of the world, in fact, and spent many, many years in the UK and Europe with my own company after a while, building that relationship. I then moved on to Microsoft and some large telcos, government organisations, etc., and eventually moving back to New Zealand. Now, along that journey, I was exposed to some of the best managers ever in some of the most professional companies. And they ranged from what I would call intuitive managers that sort of knew the right thing to do, through to the highly professional that had it structured. And I hope I'm a little bit more of the latter, that I've actually learnt how things work and the processes, because that's easier to articulate than you do what feels right. That's a pretty hard thing to teach, to do what feels right. But it's not hard to teach things like the 3 pillars of business, or that your staff's happiness and everybody in your company's happiness is a direct reflection on how well your company's doing and the power behind it. So if you can get them to be happy and driven and future focused, it all starts to hinge together. Those are easier things to teach. Monitor the happiness. I learned this from fantastic mentors that have been in their roles for decades and decades and had learnt through trial and error and banging their head against the wall. I also learnt by seeing some of the worst managers and the impact that has on both staff and their happiness, and also companies. It is really, really hard to get a company and drive it forward, or even just yourself be successful if you keep changing tack. There's an old saying in sailing that it's the fair wind that carries you across a passage. Storms blow you over and knock you off course. You've got to be able to sail a course. And if you're changing staff because people aren't sticking around because there's no retention, or you've got staff but they're not getting the maximum drive out of them because they're really just not engaged, they're not happy with it, then you've got a major, major problem. And that can kill your company. In fact, usually does. That comes out of how good a manager you are. It really does. It comes back to that, how happy are people? And I saw both sides of that. So one of the things about this channel is to help those new managers, which I often see new managers come into a role because they were promoted because they knew their job really, really well. But they didn't know how to teach other people to do that, or encourage or motivate or drive them, or create a structure. They weren't people managers, they were really good at their job. And this is happening more and more as our jobs become technical. I went through this myself, and it can be a recipe for a very unhappy life for both you and for your staff. Well, perhaps we can help with that. And I was lucky. I was exposed to some really fantastic mentors who had been in the occupation for years and years and years, and I mean a number of occupations, because I come from an IT background, but I've also been part of marketing and general business, and even to some degree a little bit of legal. It could be easy to see me sitting in my work shirt with my artwork behind me as a professional, middle-aged, serious sort of a guy that knows a lot about business. I'm not that 24/7. I made a choice when I started the videos of how I was going to present myself. And I ummed and ahed about a suit and a tie and very formal. And I ummed and ahed about being casual and dress the way I would normally dress and be comfortable and just use my house as a backdrop, which is what I'm doing now. But I actually decided that two things. I wanted my corporate moral set to line up with my audience, as much of my audience as possible. And I want my audience to be from the professionals that are up and coming all the way through to the blue collar worker who's having to manage staff in his warehouse. The sweet spot for me probably is the young, ambitious guys that are coming up through business. They have a life as well, and it needs to be over. So I chose to wear a business shirt, not a jacket, no tie, to appeal to the right audience, and I chose to green screen my own pictures behind that because it was a way for me to promote some of my artwork that I love, but also allowed me to bring some of my personality through and sort of control the situation and hide the fact that I'm a shocking videographer. Which, by the way, this video has to be done in a slightly different way. So it's no green screen. My lack of video skills is going to come through, and I really do invite you to come forward and comment, because if this is going to work, I need to be able to get the medium to a stage where it's entertaining and it passes on information in a way that's not going to dry your eyeballs out. So really happy to hear of any comments about this. I've tried a bit harder in this video, and it's a lot harder. The green screen makes it easy for me. I can have it set up all the time in my house, and it's pretty much a matter of sitting down at a computer to do the production work. Okay, so who am I? Well, I'm mid-50s. Had a passion for motorbikes since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Love them, absolutely have. Been riding since I was 10, I think. And just love motorbikes. At one stage, I think the most I've ever had is 12. I currently have 5. I'm trying to cut back, honest. I ride dirt bikes, but I also used to race on the track, and I still own track bikes and road bikes. I also own mountain bikes, and it's also a bit of a passion, along with photography. So, here we are. I'm probably not what you expect. But then, not many people will be what you expect. People are people, and that's the one thing that new managers need to remember, is that when they're put in charge of managing others, remember exactly that. You're managing others. Other people with lives, loves, passions, the stuff that drives their world. And as long as you remember that, and you create an environment where they can trust and respect you, by trusting and respecting them, you'll go places. Here I am, trying to get a mentoring channel going, so that young managers have something, a group or somebody to rely on, so that they can build those relationships, so that they can learn how to look after people, as well as a business. I don't have a degree in psychology or a business doctorate or anything like that. I'm just a person that's had maybe a little bit too much experience. But what I really want to do is try to form a community where we can all contribute, and maybe out of that we can create a dream where we have young, energetic managers creating vibrant places to work where people are happy and driven forward, and success comes in all forms, monetary and from the heart. Hope to see you there. We're looking forward to you joining me.